Darrell Day, Republican candidate for the newly drawn 32nd Congressional District. Thank you so much and welcome to Eye on Politics.
Great to see you. Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
You bet. So why are you running for Congress and what is the essence of your campaign?
I'll tell you, it's right here. It's the U.S. Constitution. We have drifted away from the basic tenets that have made our country great. And it seems like year by year, for almost 250 years, it seems like we float further away from the Constitution. And there are other countries that have constitutions. Russia has a constitution surprisingly similar to ours, and obviously they don't follow it, right? We have to get back to the Constitution, and that's very, very central to my campaign, and that's why I'm running.
You're in a crowded field. You've got a total of 9 candidates, 8 others, and why should Republican primary voters select you over the others?
Very, very clear difference. Number one, I'm one of the few that actually lives in the district. Majority of the candidates in this race don't even live in the district. Some of them live an hour outside the district. We also are not accepting out-of-state PAC money. There are some candidates in this race that are taking a lot of money from out-of-state PACs, and they're going to be beholden to out-of-state PACs. We're endorsed by over 50 GOP precinct chairs in the district. We are the grassroots campaign. We are, like I said, endorsed by a lot of conservative Republican leaders, and that is our focus. Also, I'm more of a hardliner on immigration. I've spoken out more forcefully about supporting ICE agents, even when they're, pilloried by the Democrats, pilloried by the liberal media. We have to support ICE agents in deporting criminals and also all illegal immigrants. Now, if they want to come back in the country, that's great. We are a nation of immigrants and we want them to come back, but the right way, the legal way. A majority of Americans, 70% of Americans, want all illegals deported. That's why President Trump got elected. His pledge to have mass deportations of illegal immigrants. Right now, Jack, our immigration is at the highest level it's ever been in our history, even higher than when we had the flood of Irish into New York. Our level of immigration is the highest it's ever been, and we need to take a pause on immigration. I've suggested a 5-year pause on immigration. Maybe if there's a Nobel Prize winner in biochemistry, we'll let a couple in, but basically a pause on immigration so the people here can assimilate, and also so we can set up the system to properly vet immigrants coming to our country. I mean, if you don't have a border, you don't have a country, and that's what Americans voted for when they voted for President Trump.
Does that include refugees?
We need to do a better job of vetting refugees. I think that's been used kind of as a crutch. I think it's been abused, but yes, I think we need to maybe allow some refugees from around the world, but we have to do a much better job vetting them because like I said, that's been abused.
And so you ran back in 2024, you were the Republican nominee in the current 32nd Congressional District, which
Right.
has a Democratic majority. This is going to be a Republican majority seat.
Right.
So what are you doing to become the nominee? And a lot of people think there is going to be a runoff in this race. What are you doing to make sure you're one of the people in that runoff?
Well, like you said, I ran 2 years ago. I was the GOP nominee. We won the runoff by 30 points. And I ran as a MAGA guy when it was a Democrat district. So I was a MAGA guy in this district when it was politically painful to be a MAGA guy. I'm a MAGA guy now. I'll be a MAGA guy in Congress. So I think I am the candidate that people can trust to be that MAGA guy, that America First candidate. And we have the same message that we had 2 years ago. I've been absolutely consistent on that America First message. So the message now resonates a lot better than it did, obviously, when it was a Democrat district. So our message is the same, and we have the same grassroots effort. We have over 300 volunteers in our grassroots effort. So we are just making that a central part of the campaign, is door to door, getting people out to vote. And frankly, that's really important because sometimes That's why Republicans lose. Like in the very recent special election in Fort Worth, Republicans poured a lot of money into it, but I don't think they had the ground game, the grassroots effort that we have in this campaign.
Why do you think that's going to make a difference?
It makes all the difference in the world. In this era of people being kind of disconnected from their neighbors, you have to get out and talk to people at the door. Number one, to find out what's on their mind. I love block walking because I love to hear what people are saying. How can you represent people if you don't know what's on their mind? So I want to go door to door and listen. And that's the number one thing that I'm doing, is to listen what's on the minds of the people of CD 32.
And what are the people in this congressional district telling you?
Immigration, immigration, immigration. They stand with President Trump. They want the border wall finished. They want illegal immigrants deported. And they're also talking a lot about the deficit, the $38 trillion deficit. And I'm a very strong budget hawk, and we're hearing from a lot of people that are rightfully concerned about the impact of a $38 trillion deficit.
So what are your priorities then if you are to be elected?
Number one, obviously finish the wall and stand with President Trump and stand with ICE agents. Number two, I want zero-based budgeting. So right now in the budget process, they take last year's budget and add 2, 3, 4, 5% to it, and the Leviathan just continues to get bigger and bigger. I want zero-based budgeting where every government agency's got to come before Congress to justify their existence and justify that every dollar spent is actually benefiting the American people. So instead of one big beautiful bill, a bunch of small beautiful bills where it's harder to hide the pork, and also, like I said, find out government agencies that no longer need to exist, that are no longer benefiting the American people. And then third, protecting our children. I'm a very, very ardent pro-life advocate, but also protecting our girls from boys in sports, protecting our girls from boys in locker rooms, and protecting our kids from this gender mutilation that's gone on. And it's a barbaric practice. You've got a confused teenager that don't know where they stand, and they go through this so-called gender affirming care, and then 2 years later they realize they made a huge mistake, and we've got to protect our children. Got to protect our children.
With regards to your comments on spending, zero-based budgeting sounds good, but we've heard the talk before about a balanced budget. The deficit keeps going up, the debt keeps going up, to your point. So how realistic is that, though, in Washington, D.C., where they're still trying to figure out, they're still debating over this DHS funding, and DHS may shut down, and it's taken so long to just get back to passing individual spending bills. So now you're talking about zero-based budgeting. How realistic is that?
Well, is there any appetite in Washington right now? No, there's not. But 3 years ago, when I started beating the drum for zero-based budgeting, nobody was talking about it. Now in this campaign, we've actually had 2 candidate forums where that was one of the questions, is do you support zero-based budgeting? So is the fire maybe starting to be lit? I don't know. We'll find out. I'll just go to House Republicans one by one, just try to win them over. And I'm a very, very persistent guy. I'm going to be a dog with the bone to bring our deficit under control. And the big thing, I think, is that instead of this big funding bill, and the media holds a gun to our head and says, hey, you've got to pass this or the government shuts down, instead you've got a lot of smaller bills, and you can take them one at a time. So the fight will be smaller. And again, the big thing is it's going to be harder to hide the pork in small bills. So in response to your question, is it going to be a tough lift to get Congress behind this? It absolutely is. But every good idea starts with a single person pushing that idea, and I'm going to push it relentlessly. Now, if there's a better way to bring our budget problem under control, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear it. But right now, this is the best idea that I've seen out there, and I'm going to pursue it relentlessly.
You brought up ICE before, and I'm wondering, what did you make of the 2 Americans who were killed in Minneapolis, either from ICE or CBP agents?
Well, the Democrats have ratcheted up the rhetoric to dangerous levels. I mean, calling ICE Gestapo, I mean, that's just bizarre. It's a police force doing a police action. You know, when you and I go out onto Central, we don't ever stop in the middle of a traffic stop and go start calling the officer a Nazi and get in the middle of that. That'd be insane, right? That's what Democrats are doing in some of these blue cities. It's insane. The Democrat leaders have to ratchet down the rhetoric that's been very, very unseemly, very dangerous, and stop trying to egg people on. Because the people that were killed, and tragic that those people were killed, but they did something very, very stupid in getting in the way of a law enforcement action. And, you know, just let ICE do its job. Just back off and let ICE do its job. And what is ICE doing? They're enforcing our immigration laws. Now, if you want to push for open borders, if Democrats, you know, want to take down all our immigration laws, push for that, push for constitutional amendment if that's what they want. But don't try to stop the enforcement of our laws.
Democrats want changes in how ICE operates, and they've listed a whole series of demands. Where are you on that?
I think their demands are silly, they're unlawful, and I think their real demand is leave all the illegals alone and leave them. That's really what Democrats want. You know, the demands are window dressing for what they really want, which is just to keep all the illegal immigrants here, and they want them voting in California and New York.
So when you say what they're asking for is unlawful, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, yes.
And affordability is also a big issue. If you get to Congress, what legislation would you work on to try to make people's lives more affordable, just going about doing their daily lives, their routines? Yeah,
that's a great question, and I think that'll be one of the central questions of the midterms. And I think we've already started down that path. We've seen some prices start to go down. For example, we've seen apartment rents go down. The first time in almost 30 years that apartment rents have gone down. The number one thing I think that we can do is continue boosting U.S. energy production. Drill, baby, drill, of course. Also, we need to get serious again about nuclear energy. It's a very environmentally clean, very reliable form of energy. If we bring energy costs down, that reverberates through the entire economy. You know, everything we buy pretty much comes on a truck. You bring energy costs down, and that brings everything down. For example, during Biden's term, energy costs went up sharply. We remember seeing the pain at the pump as energy prices went up, and then that quickly followed at the grocery store. Prices at the grocery store went up lockstep with energy prices going up at the pump. The reverse is going to be true. Continue bringing down energy prices.
Where are you on President Trump's tariffs? Do you support them?
I do support them. And when he first rolled them out, if you remember, there were a lot of Democrats that said it was going to cause a Great Depression. They were wrong. It didn't. They thought that it was going to, you know, drive prices way up. There's a momentary increase in some prices, but not at the levels that a lot of the Democrat experts said. And I think tariffs, number one, they leveled the playing field. That was very important. Number two, the average tariff has been about 15%. Number three, it's given President Trump a very important foreign relations tool. It's given him the power. For example, recently brought India to the table to stop buying oil from Russia because of tariffs. I think we lowered tariffs on India from 25% to 18, I think was the number. And stopping buying oil from Russia starves the Russian war machine. And maybe that's a The way to bring Putin to the negotiating table and stop the invasion of Ukraine is to starve the Russian war machine. And tariffs have been an important way to accomplish some foreign policy objectives.
What do you say to some small business owners who've said, you know, their costs have gone up as they've had to import products because they can't get them from the United States, et cetera, and that their costs have gone up and it's hurt their profitability? What do you say to that?
Well, as a small business owner for 28 years in the district, I'm very mindful of those costs. Like I said, we saw a small short-term spike. Prices are coming down. I think we're going to continue to see prices coming down. But you're right, affordability is a very important issue, and I think we're on the right track for bringing prices down. And the first thing we had to do is stop the runaway inflation that we saw under the Biden administration. That's been accomplished, and now we have to bring other prices down. We also have to bring healthcare prices down. Healthcare prices have far outpaced inflation, and we need to look at, and I don't know the answer to this. I've met with some hospital executives giving me some ideas on some things that will bring healthcare costs down. President Trump has made a small move in that effort, bringing down prescription drug prices. As you know, Americans sometimes pay 10 times more than people around the world for the exact same drug. So we've started on that effort by bringing down some prescription drug prices.
Democrats have tried to, it hasn't gone anywhere, but they've tried to extend the enhanced premiums for the Affordable Care Act, the tax incentives, and that hasn't gone anywhere. What do you say to that?
You know, one of the, what we thought at first was a bug of Obamacare, I think was a Democrat feature. I think they wanted to drive up healthcare costs so much that no one could afford it, so Big Brother government had to ride to the rescue. So I think the answer, the long-term answer, is to bring healthcare costs down so that mom and pop can afford their own healthcare and not have to have Big Brother government subsidize it.
You mentioned some of the ideas that hospital executives gave you. What are those? What ideas do you have? Because people, it is a concern.
It's a very big concern, especially in East Texas. I mean, a lot of people in East Texas have to drive 3 hours to get to Dallas to have an operation. I mean, imagine having to drive your kids or grandkids to school, and you had to drive 3 hours to take them to school every day. I mean, that'd be crazy. We have to get some more healthcare options to East Texas. And we also have to stop the, one thing that Obamacare did is centralize all of medicine. And we saw a lot of general practitioners go out of business because they couldn't, again, they didn't want to keep up with the paperwork, the onerous paperwork of Obamacare. So sometimes they retired. Now we've got a shortage of doctors because a lot of them retired. And some of them went to work for big conglomerates at big hospitals like in Dallas. When a sole practitioner works at a hospital, these healthcare executives said, on average they see about 15 patients a day. When they are sole practitioners working, at a small office in East Texas, they see 45 patients a day. That's a tremendous loss of efficiency, tremendous loss of that huge talent base of doctors, and that's one reason prices have gone up. Doctors at the big conglomerates are seeing 15 patients a day instead of seeing 45 when they were in private practice. So that's just one thing that they said to bring costs down.
You talked about hospitals in East Texas. We've seen a lot of rural hospitals close.
Right.
How do you prevent that?
That is one thing that I'm talking with these healthcare execs. They've suggested some things. I'm doing some research. I'm not an expert on healthcare costs at all. I'm trying to educate myself now. That's why I've brought those people in. So I wish I had the answer. I'm going to keep researching until I find some answers.
Many Republicans here in Texas have sharply criticized and railed against Sharia law, CARE, the Muslim Brotherhood. Where are you on that? Sharia
law is not compatible with the U.S. Constitution. And we have to separate the political ideology of Muslims from the religion, because it seems like there are a lot of tenets of the Muslim faith and Sharia law that aren't really religious. They are more political. So, for example, we've seen some mosques built in Texas counties that have pretty much no Islam population. Why are those mosques being built? So I'm very concerned about what's going on, and I'm also wanting the FBI to start infiltrating some mosques to make sure that there's no radical imams that are preaching, very, very dangerous messages. Instead of infiltrating school boards and going after soccer moms, I want the FBI to look at these mosques and see if there's any radicalization going on there.
How do you separate Sharia and concerns over that with everyday Texans who happen to be of the Muslim faith?
That's a big question, and I think I'd like to see a Supreme Court case and seeing if it's, is it a political ideology? And if that's the case, then it doesn't deserve the same protections that other religions do. So I think we have to look at it, because there are a lot of things that are very unique about it. For example, the Baptists don't go and claim territory, right? Catholics don't behead someone who leaves the Catholic Church, right? Lutherans don't have their own set of laws, like there is Sharia law. So there are some things that are very, very troubling about it that we have to take a hard look at.
And let me ask you about Iran. Should the U.S. bomb Iran, given the reports that we've seen that the Ayatollah's regime is killing its own people?
It's very troubling what Iran is doing, but I am an America First guy, and to me, it means that we stand for America's interest. And I know that sounds cold, that we wouldn't be riding to the rescue. And for 40 years, the U.S. has been riding to the rescue all over the globe. We've been the world's policeman. Frankly, I don't want the U.S. to be the world's policeman anymore. Other countries have to step up for their own defense. For example, President Trump pushing NATO to increase their own defense spending is kind of an offshoot of that. So do I want the U.S. riding to the rescue every time something bad happens around the world? I don't. And now, it's terrible. It's tragic. It's a horrible thing. And there's some things going on in Africa that are actually more troubling, genocide against Christians. So there are some terrible things going on around the world, but I don't want the U.S., we can't afford to be the world's policeman anymore. We just can't do it.
And with regards to Gaza, do you support the president's plan to rebuild, and should Hamas be forced to disarm?
Hamas absolutely should be forced to disarm. Obviously, they've done a terrible thing to the people of Gaza. I don't want the U.S. to spend the money to rebuild Gaza, but do I want private investment there? And President Trump's vision is turn it into a beach resort. That's not the most terrible idea I've ever heard. So I want private investment to rebuild Gaza. I don't want the U.S. taxpayer rebuilding Gaza.
And there's been some debate within the Republican Party about whether the U.S. should financially support Israel, send weapons, et cetera. Where are you on that?
With a $38 trillion deficit, we can't keep shoveling U.S. taxpayer money all around the globe. So is Israel a special ally of the U.S.? Absolutely, absolutely. As a Christian, Israel is near and dear to my heart. But should we financially support Israel? We shouldn't do that at all. With a $38 trillion deficit, we can't afford to do it. And the Israeli economy, I think, is actually roaring along a little bit better than ours right now. Now, do we want to sell arms to them? Sure. But financially help any other nation? I want to rebuild the United States first. And when we wipe out our deficit and we've rebuilt the U.S. infrastructure, it's crumbling all across the country. When we rebuild the U.S. infrastructure, then we can think about helping the rest of the world. But right now, as an America First guy, I want to help America.
And my last question to you is about Venezuela. Did you support the U.S. capturing Nicolas Maduro? And if so, why or why not? And what would you like to see happen in Venezuela next?
I regard it as a police action for somebody who was in narcoterrorism. So to me, it was going and plucking a criminal. Do I want to rebuild Venezuela? I don't. I don't want us to run Venezuela. Venezuela is Venezuela's problem. We took out a narco-terrorist and I supported that, but going in and running Venezuela, no. Again, as an America First guy, I want us to be focused on the United States.
Darrell Day, candidate for the newly drawn 32nd Congressional District. Thank you so much.
Jack, great talking with you. Thank you.
Nice to see you. Thank you.